Hey guys, I'm Dr. McFarland, and in this video, I'm going to show you how I made the ultimate FM9 preset. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And I've had the Fractal FM9 for a few months now, and it is definitely growing on me. It is not an easy device to learn, but with the help of the manual and tons of YouTube videos, and even using the FM9 edit, I'm able to quickly learn this thing, get some presets made, and really get all the tones I need for playing here in the studio or playing live, whether that's at church or with a band at a local club or venue. So let's go over to FM9 Edit because it is easier to see exactly the layout within the editor instead of having a camera over the screen and all that stuff. So my other tutorial style videos on the FM9 are primarily with the camera over the hardware, so I can teach you how to do everything from the hardware side and not so much on the FM9 edit, because I want you to be really comfortable with the unit itself and not have to rely on the editor all the time to do little tweaks and build presets. So here's the FM9 edit, and you can see here that I have an input block on the far left and then an output block on the far right. And this is really the basics of what you want, because without the input and output, you're not going to get a signal coming in. And you also need a string of shunts, which is what these blank blocks are called. And then you need essentially cables connecting each shunt in a row to complete your signal path. So there's all kinds of blocks you can have in your preset. But for me, I like to have at least a clean, a dirty rhythm, some kind of ambient and swell type sounds, maybe a tremolo, and maybe kick in and out one single drive block, whether that's a tube screamer, or in this case, I have a BB preamp in the signal path. So let's just walk through my scenes that I have and see what kind of tones I got. So scene 1 is simply called clean. And I'm using this one single preset as a basis for all my other presets that I make, because maybe I just want to switch out the amps that I'm using but keep all the other effects. And so this is basically two different amps. And in this signal path, I have the Shiver lead, which is a preset that I copied over from another preset. And then the top amp is switched around to the Shiver clean. So this is based on your Bogner Shiva head. And on the clean channel, let me go over here. Yeah, I'm already on clean. So this is my clean sound with the Gil Paris signature model. Okay, so it has a very shimmery top end, and I can go and edit that a little bit. I have a bass and a treble. I can turn the bright switch off. Which actually may work a little bit better for this guitar because it is naturally brighter since it's a bolt-on neck and more of an S-style guitar and pickups. These are the Fishman Fluence pickups, and I think they sound pretty good for any type of music. So what I'm doing to switch between the amplifiers is using the multiplexer. So the multiplexer allows you to choose certain rows within a column that you can easily switch in and out, and then you get zero gap when you switch. So that makes it very convenient. And I know there's other ways that people like to do this, but I just really like the multiplexer, and I like that totally seamless sound when I switch from the clean to the overdrive. So here's a clean again. It's just the smoothest transition that I found works great for that gapless, seamless switching. So that's essentially what I'm doing here. And see what I got. Yeah. All right, so there's my clean tone, and then I have a little bit of reverb, which is the London plate. There's tons of other reverbs we could choose from in here. And I kind of was just listening to a Leon Todd video today, and he uses a London plate. So I was like, all right, I can try that one, but I've definitely used the large spring, and I like the church settings. But for now, we'll just leave it on the London plate. Now, something really special here at the end of the signal path is I do have my cab toward the end, but I also have another output coming right before the cab out of the last reverb block. So what this essentially does is it bypasses the cab when I'm going out of output number 3 into a power amp or some kind of amplifier that has an effects loop. And that just makes it really convenient when I want to send the full signal to front of house or my DAW, but I want to send a separate output to, like I said, a separate amplifier on stage. I have switched over today using a different layout on the FM9. So I have the OMG 9 layout, which is essentially a term that was made up when you combine the FM3 and the FC6 together. That gives you 9 total switches. So I essentially have access to scenes, presets, and effects. And then I have access to those rows of scenes and effects and presets across the bottom switches. So I always have my tap tempo and my tuner ready to go. And I do probably need to switch around some of these scenes so I can have my clean and my rhythm on the same bank. And then when I bank over, I can have more of my specialized sounds like the tremolo and ambient swell and stuff like that. So I may switch those around here in a little bit, but for now, we're just going to keep them where they are. So scene number 2 essentially keeps the same amp. Okay, so we're still on channel B, which is the row 3, which is the clean amp. But now I bring in a drive pedal, and I can choose to have the multi-delay and the extra reverb off. And that really depends on if I'm playing at church or if I'm doing more of like a bluesy thing, whether I want a more wet sounding overdrive sound or just a more dry sound. Now on for scene number 2, we have the drive pedal on, and this is what that sounds like. Okay, now I like that sound. It is more ambient, so I can choose to turn these off and bypass them. And notice that all my wet effects are set to mute effects in. That allows the effect to keep the tails even though they get turned off or bypassed. Okay, so I'm going to take that and I'm going to save it. So now we have just more of a dry sound. Okay, and in certain situations, I can choose to have my delay on or not. Maybe for now, I can just turn that off and hit save again. Okay, now I can choose to raise the gain on this pedal or just keep it where it is. It's not really meant to be the full-on, brunt of high gain awesomeness that the actual Shiva lead channel will provide, but it is a way to kind of go from clean to slightly overdriven to then full-on crunch rhythm, lead type sounds. So I'm going to save that, and then on to channel 3. This is going to switch over to channel A on the multiplexer, and that is accessing row 4, which is this amp right here. You can see that we got 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Okay, so this is the Shiver lead, and this is what that sounds like. Okay, and once again, this has more of the ambient effects kind of built in. I was definitely using those playing at church this last week, which it worked really well for that situation. But I can always make a separate preset with more of the drier sounds dialed in if I'm doing more of like a rock blues thing, but still want to access a clean, overdrive pedal kicked in, and then a lead channel from the actual amp. So there's just different options I can choose from there. Let's go ahead and we'll just keep it like that. And preset 4 is going to turn on my tremolo. There's a little bit of reverb and a little bit of delay in there. Okay, now let's go from the ambient lead sound over to this tremolo so you can hear the transition. Okay, so there's no gap. It's very smooth transition there. But this preset was based on the EVH Ambient, which is a different preset that I copied over. So I'm just going to call this Bog Ambient for Bogner. The Bogner Shiva or Shiver amp. Okay. Preset 5 is going to be the full-on rhythm sound. And when you have the OMG or OFMG, whatever you call it is, you essentially have 4 scenes on the first bank and then 4 more scenes on the second bank. And when I first made all these scenes, I really didn't take that into account. So I would probably want to have 1 be my clean, 2 be my overdrive, then 3 just be the clean rhythm sound. And then maybe 4 have the lead sound in there. And then I can kick over to 5. Really depends on what songs I'm playing. But have essentially 5 through 8 be more of the wet stuff and the tremolo and swell and stuff like that. So anyway, here's the rhythm sound. No delay, just some reverb. Okay, I think that sounds great. Scene 6 is going to add in some delay. So this is more the lead sound. Okay. Preset number 7 goes back to my clean amp, and you can see that by the multiplexer in row 3. And now we have the delay and reverb on the bottom row, or the main row. But we also have a plex delay, a multi delay, and the reverb. So this reverb is the Ursa Major, and there's tons of other reverbs that have that high shimmery type tone on there. I mean, this one just sounded good to me, and I could probably spend another hour going through all the different reverbs, but I just felt like this one worked well for the sound I was going for at the time. And then the multi delay is set to AH swell long. So it just kind of adds to the ambient swell effect. And then the plex delay has a golden shimmer in there. So this is what this sounds like all together. So I just love that sound. It has a very nice natural decay. The high shimmery stuff is not over the top and in your face. It's just very smooth and in the background. It really just lets the notes shine as you play. Very cool. And then the last scene is all of that the same, but now we add in the volume and pan block. And this is set to the type of the auto swell. So we have a regular volume and we have an auto swell. My first foray into fractal units was with the AX8, and I did like the form factor of that. Even though it didn't have scribble strips over the switches, it still gave me plenty of information on the main screen that I could see. But the problem with that, it only gave you one reverb block, and the volume and pan did not have an auto swell option on there. At least I didn't see it at the time. If it was there, I'm sorry. I'm completely wrong. But the only way I found to do a swell type effect was to go in and add an envelope or a modifier to the volume block, and then do all the envelope type stuff. And I don't know. I'm fine doing it like that, but if I can just have an auto swell option, that's just easier for me. So here's the auto swell. I'll put this on the neck pickup. Okay, you can go in and mess with the log volume taper. There's a threshold, which essentially sets how loud your picking has to be for it to be full volume. Otherwise, if you have a very light touch, you're gonna get a very good swell sound, but you don't have to worry about your stronger hits messing anything up. So. The attack time is actually how long it takes for the swell to come in. So if you have it really short. Okay, so I usually try to have it around 800 to 1,000 milliseconds, because 1,000 milliseconds is 1 second of time. Or something like that. So let's actually try like 800-ish. Okay, and this is essentially all I need for a pretty much any gig that I play nowadays. Like I said before, I mainly play at church, but apart from that, I'm also just a plain blues rock type player. So as long as I have a clean sound, so I can do basic rhythm stuff or maybe do some funky stuff, and then kick into overdrive, whether that's a tube screamer or in this case a BB preamp. That just gives me a little bit of hair and the edge of breakup kind of sound for dirty rhythms, but not full on, overdrive and lead sounds. And then I have a lead channel on the amp that gives me more natural bass response than a pedal can usually give you. It really does give you more depth in your sound, I think, when you use overdrive and distortion from an actual amplifier versus a pedal. But stay tuned for the channel where I may be comparing the overdrive and distortion sounds you can get from a pedal versus the amp and how close they actually get to each other. So if that sounds interesting to you, be sure to subscribe down below and click the bell. And in the meantime, I am Dr. McFarland. I will see you in the next video. Keep rocking.